I'm Kendall, and today's video will be covering troubleshooting an electrical issue in a residential property. Stay tuned. Today I am trying to troubleshoot an issue with overhead lights in a home that hasn't been occupied for some time. The home is only about 12 years old, and there's no clear signs of electrical damage or tampering with the existing rough electrical system in the attics or in the areas where it's easily accessible. So now that we've ruled that out, we have to kind of go down the checklist of different areas to check out to try and determine where the problem lies. In this particular scenario, I have two overhead lights. One is in a hallway and one is in a bedroom. This shot that I have on the camera right now is actually of the fixture in the bedroom. Neither one works. Everything else in the house works except for these two overhead lights. So I've actually figured out which breaker controls these fixtures, and I'm just trying to back my way in to figuring out where the problem lies. Okay guys, tool talk. I'm going to tell you specifically which tools I used to complete this project. And for this one it was very, very straightforward. I had one, a flathead screwdriver. Number two, Phillips head screwdriver. Number three, I had an outlet tester. And four, I have a voltage tester. Both of these two testers both kind of plug into outlets. The stick one will also allow you to test the voltage on the wires that are behind the switches and outlets to let you know if they're actually hot or not. So these are the tools that I used. For this type of work, I would kind of advise against using impact drivers or drills if you have those, because it's very easy to over tighten the screws to the point where you damaged either the switch plate covers, the actual switches, or the screws that are holding your wires in place. So for the sake of being careful and not tearing anything up, you should use screwdrivers to loosen and tighten your screws and your nuts on this one. So that's it. Okay, so the first step that I took was I unscrewed my light fixtures from the ceiling and tested the wiring that is actually running to the fixture wiring. And there was no power on either one. So we can eliminate that right there. So it's probably not the fixture because it's not getting power at all. So the next step was to actually go around and test all the outlets that may be on the circuit. To do this, I just used a really handy little tool that is used specifically for testing outlets. You simply plug it in and it's got 3 lights on the bottom of it, and depending on the light combination that pops up, that lets you know if it's wired correctly, and if it's not, then it lets you know what most likely issue with the way that it's wired is. After doing that, I determined that all the fixtures or all of the outlets in the room are correctly wired. So after putting that to rest, the next step was to actually check connections on all of my outlets and switches that are on the same circuit as these 2 lights. This was a little bit more difficult and a lot more time consuming. So this required me to actually unscrew the faceplate off of each one of the outlets and switches and actually pull the outlets and switches out of the rough end box that's in the wall so that I could actually examine the wiring on the back side of the actual switch and outlet. Upon doing this, I did find one switch that clearly had a problem. When I pulled it out from the wall, the switch basically fell apart in my hands. So that was my first big clue that this may actually be the problem. So without further ado, let me kind of pan to the side here or step out of the way, and I can show you exactly what that switch looks like, because I haven't taken it off yet and I haven't replaced it. So I'll show you what it looks like the way that I found it, and then I'll show you what it looks like once I replace it, and then we'll test it together and see if that fixes the problem. This is actually the outlet that is in question. It looks okay from the front. When you turn it to the side, you can see that it's completely busted. And this is actually a piece of it that completely fell off when I actually pulled it from the wall. And so the wiring for it is still here. You see the two black wires here in the wall still. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and take the neutral loose here, switch out the switch, or change out the switch, and then put a new light bulb in the bulbs above, and see if this fixes the problem. So give me 1 second here, and we'll see if that does the trick. Alright guys, so you see I've got my new switch wired in. I have not tried it out yet. I wanted to go ahead and just do it on camera so you guys can see at the same time that I do whether or not it works. The next thing I'm going to do is get up here on this ladder. I guess I really don't need the ladder to do this, so I'm just going to screw in one bulb here. And of course I'm going to put everything back once we've tested everything. So without further ado, we've got one little light bulb in there. I'm going to hit the switch here. 3, 2, 1. All right, it works. So that was our problem. All right guys, I just want to shoot a quick follow-up because as soon as I cut the camera, I came out into the hallway to try out the other fixture, and it still didn't work. So I ended up having to do the same thing that I'd done before, which was check my outlets and switches. And once I removed the cover plate from one of the switches in the wall and pulled the switch out, I was able to see that it was not only damaged, but that the connection was actually loose. So when I did that, the light actually came on. So I'm gonna show you specifically what I'm referring to here. Let's see if I can zoom in close enough to show it to you. But if you look right here, you can see here that it's cracked. You see how you can see the wires exposed here? You shouldn't be able to see that. There's actually a piece of plastic that has come off. That's it. That has broken off, that actually goes there, that makes this a complete working unit. So if you see me, I don't know if you guys can see that, but can you see, if I jiggle it around, you can see the light over here going on and off. And by the way, the power is only on so that I can test to see if this is getting power or not. So now that we've determined what the problem is, I can turn the power off and swap out this outlet, or switch, I'm sorry, and then we'll try it again. And for reference, this is actually a two-way or three-way switch, which allows 2 or 3 switches in the same general circuit or general area to control one light. In this case, it's 2 lights, but topic for another day. That's all I wanted to add to the original video. All right, guys, that concludes the tip for today. If you enjoyed this or found it helpful, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you've got questions or videos or topics that you'd like to see me cover, either message me directly or leave a word for me in the comments, and I will do my best to answer your questions. And maybe, who knows, I may even shoot a video on the topic that you suggest. So see you guys on the next one. Over and out.